Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Professor Manpreet Uppal, Advisory Director with Prism Philosophy and an educationist, trainer, executive coach and of course a communication expert. Through this video series, we are trying to understand the unit of Business Correspondence 1. This unit, as I said earlier, will be covered over 2 videos. The first has already taken you through the basic fundamentals of a business letter. Now, having understood the basic, in this part 2 of the video series, we will demonstrate the various exhibits of business letter kinds for a better understanding. Before going into the kinds of letters, however, let me take you again through the structure of the unit just to create some more clarity. The topics that have already been covered in part 1 of Business Correspondence Unit 1 were: we started with the objectives of the unit, we understood an introduction to business correspondence, moving there on to the introduction of business letters, essentials of a business letter, the style of writing a business letter, and we concluded the unit with planning the letter. Part 2 of the video series now will take you through the different kinds of business letters along with showcasing an exhibit of each type. The topics covered in this part would be the kinds of business letters, which will include letters in 5 major categories. Category 1 being letters of inquiries, quotations, orders and acceptance. Category 2, we talk about letters of claims, complaints and adjustments. Category 3, we are looking at agency letters. Fourth, it is the status inquiries, and finally we wind up the unit with banking letters. Before we go into details of any of these kinds of letters, let's quickly remind ourselves of the objectives at the end of these 2 videos. A student having completed these 2-part video series should be able to describe the essentials and style of a business letter, should be able to plan a business letter, and finally should be able to write different kind of business letters very effectively. Let's now move on into the details of understanding the kinds of business letters. There are various circumstances in which business correspondence becomes necessary. Depending on the nature of circumstances, business letters may be of various kinds, which may be classified into following general types. We have taken a look at the list already, so let's begin with the 5 types we have discussed, that is letters of inquiries, quotations, orders and acceptance, letters of claims, complaints and adjustments, agency letters, status letters and bank letters. I need to add at this point, the list here is not totally exhaustive. There could be more. However, we have tried to cover the most commonly used and the most important under each heading. Let us now discuss the nature of these letters. Beginning now with category 1, which includes letters of inquiries, quotations, orders, acceptance. Letters of inquiry are generally addressed by prospective buyers to possible suppliers of goods to seek information regarding the availability of goods and the terms and conditions of supply. A letter of inquiry may include full description of the goods required with the specifications of the good, or the letter may be a request to the supplier to send the catalogue and the price list of the goods traded by the supplier. Inquiry letter may either be solicited or unsolicited. The solicited letter of inquiry is in response to an advertisement inviting the reader to write to certain department for certain information. The unsolicited letter of inquiry is that in which the writer takes the initiative in asking for the information. Following each category of letter discussed, let's carefully examine the exhibits for better understanding. The first exhibit is the specimen of unsolicited letter of inquiry requesting a catalogue or a price list to be sent. In this specimen, the sender, Sultan Chand, clearly addresses the receiver Shakti Das with reference to the advertisement seen and asks for the catalogue. Further details, and this must be noticed, include a background description and a request for a quick response. Moving on now to the letter of quotation. When an inquiry is received about goods from any prospective buyer, a letter of quotation has to be sent in reply. Business quotations should be prepared giving complete information as to the nature and quality of goods, the time and mode of delivery, price per unit of weight or measurement, charges for packing, transportation and other services, and finally the terms of payment, that is whether we are paying on cash or credit or any other acceptance. Specimen 1 here attached shows a clear reply acknowledging the receipt of inquiry and enclosing the catalogue and copy of quotations as asked by the writer. As you move on, you will see another specimen, and I am calling it specimen 2. This shows more specific quotation. It includes details like the date on which the letter is received, the discounts available, that is the discounts on offer, the payment terms, packing cost. This is definitely making it more clear and actionable. Letter for placing an order begins with a gratitude for the quotation sent and then moves to specific order details as given in the specimen by Messrs. A.K. Das and Sons. It is a good idea to mention price details here. Makes the letter more clear and more impactful. The letter for placing an order is followed by the letter for accepting the order. The seller acknowledges receipt of the order and provides booking details with the expected date of delivery. Please keep following up with the exhibits available for each of these types. Following the same, we need to issue a letter intimating supply of goods which confirms that the products have been dispatched. All details of products in the shipment are to be included with the total invoice value attached. Remember, your buyer needs all the details. Having completed the section of letters on inquiry, quotation, orders and acceptance, let's now move on to the next session. And in this section, we look at letters of claims, complaints and adjustments. There may be occasions when discrepancies arise between the stipulations in the order placed by the buyer and the actual manner or execution of the order by the supplier. The quantity and the quality of goods received may not conform to the goods ordered, or the goods received may be short or in damaged or defective condition, or further still, the terms and conditions of payment, delivery, etc. may have been varied. Letters of claims and complaints may here have to be resorted to. So here, the buyer will have to write a letter of a claim or a complaint to resolve his issues. A letter of complaint should be written in a polite language, giving only bare facts which should be substantiated by sufficient evidence. The letter should never start with the assumption that the other party is a cheat. Complaints may arise due to some unintentional acts. Let's acknowledge that. Circumstances and benefit of doubt should be given to the other party unless of course otherwise proved. Letters of claims and adjustments are written to the suppliers of goods when there are defects in the goods received. Such letters are also written, by the way, to railways, roadways, postal departments, insurance authorities when a buyer thinks his goods have gotten lost or delayed or damaged in transit. Let's now look at the sample. First specimen talks about a letter from the Lucknow Pottery House to Khurja Potteries complaining about the receipt of 2 broken sets which they have requested need to be replaced. Following it up, the next specimen is a prompt reply from Khurja Pottery regretting the damage and politely agreeing to cover up the losses. Remember, it is always a good idea to acknowledge the defects, to admit what can be corrected. Such letters always help build smooth business relations. The next specimen of the complaint letter is addressed to the railways, and this is because of the issue of a missing parcel. Please notice the relevant facts. It is very important here to mention the parcel details like the parcel number, the date, the location where it was shipped and the location where it is supposedly gone missing. All of these details will make it easier for railways or any authority to track the missing parcel. Having talked about complaints, let's now move on to the next category of letters, which are agency letters. Business firms which do not find it suitable or convenient to open branches decide to establish agency relationships with other businesses or other business firms in different towns and cities. Establishment of an agency is a process. A business house on its own may apply to a manufacturer or a supplier for an agency explaining its financial resources, business connections, area and scope of operations, guarantee of business, rate of commission including all the extra charges, requirement of sole agency or otherwise, and finally including the business references. If the manufacturer or the supplier is convinced about the particulars of the applicant, inquiries will be made regarding the financial position and business dealings of the applicant from the references. The next set of exhibits explains this category of communication. A request for agency letter includes reference to the advertisement seeking agency suitors, followed by the letter sharing his background and suitability for the agency in question. Having received the agency inquiry letters, what follows is an inquiry letter from the manufacturer to the reference given. The manufacturer here is trying to ascertain the credibility and business worthiness of the agency seeker. Next, we look at a set of replies. A favorable reply as exhibited in the specimen moves the deal further, and back it up with the next letter. The manufacturer appoints the agency in question with conferring the appointment letter with clear terms and conditions prescribed in terms of roles and responsibilities of either parties and the commissions and tariffs involved. However, we still have another set of replies. On receiving an unfavorable reply, which is the next exhibit, please remember the unfavorable reply which must be factual as it involves serious business decisions. The manufacturer may now choose to decline the agency request or ask for further references as given in the next exhibit. The writer, Fast Fan Dealers, is clearly asking for a bank guarantee or a reference from the suitor. The Speedy Fans company, since they are entering into business together for the first time. This is definitely acceptable as an industry protocol. Moving on, the next letter. The suitor may in this case reply with references as given in the specimen to take up the relationship to the next level. The manufacturer may also sometimes, as given in the specimen, resort to seeking advice or opinion on the agency seeker by way of reaching out to an industry established third party. Next letter. On receiving a favorable reply as from R.K. Khanna and company, Fast Fans may choose to go ahead with assigning the agency. It is important here to mention that these three specimens that we've just talked about go into the category of our next letters, that is the status letters, as they help ascertain the current status of a business relationship. Inquiries about credibility, financial standing, dealing of business firms, customers and clients are often necessary to be made. For this purpose, confidential letters are sent either to known references or to other business houses and institutions which may have dealings with the firms. The fourth letter, still in the status letter category, is a sample by R.K. Khanna and company expressing their inability to comment on the agency seeker in this question. Also, there could be an indifferent reply from a third party, which makes it very difficult for a manufacturer to take a decision. In this case, it becomes the decision or the go-ahead of the manufacturer at his will. He may want to move ahead with it or he may want to drop it. The next very important segment of the letters which now need to be explored comes in the form of banking letters. Relationships with banks are largely based on trust, and multiple levels of exchange letters might go to and fro, and they might figure up in this relationship. From various types of deposits and loan accounts to the services under the advice of the bank. These may include collection of bills, dividend warrants, etc., issuing drafts, letters of credit, making tax payments, safe custody of valuables and so on. Customers are expected to write to the bank for specific services or leave standing instructions for services to be valid till further information. Customers are also expected to honor their commitments with the bank. Usually, the following type of letters are written by customers. Number 1, issue of letter of credit, letter for collection of checks, letter for issue of drafts, letters giving standing instructions, letters for overdrawn accounts, and also letters advising payment of bills. Let's look at the request to a bank for issue of letter of credit. The specimen shows a letter by S. Datta to the manager Metropolitan Bank asking for a letter of credit to support his business visit to Mumbai. The next sample is a request for credit facility by Agrawal Machinery Company since they are entering into imports of industrial machinery from Messrs. Kessler Industry to Ludwig Strauss, Frankfurt, West Germany. The request is for a letter of credit for an amount of $10,000. Following up is a letter by Watson's Private Limited reporting the delay in collection of checks issued. It is important to note on all of these letters, the check numbers, the account dates, the account numbers, everything has to be very clearly mentioned. Next is a letter countermanding payment or a stop check request due to the loss of a check. This is urgent and needs immediate action. A rather common and used letter is the next sample, which is a letter for the issue of a demand draft complete with pay details, amount and request for issuing the demand draft. The next sample is not a letter but a slight deviation in the form of a standing instruction by a company, Telstar company, to the manager of a Punjab National Bank requesting a recurring release of pension to 2 of its employees. Closing it with the last sample, letter for the collection of bill of exchange by Jagdish Narayan and Subarchand towards manager Dena Bank with a request to receive a 90-day bill of exchange. Again, important to add and cover all the pertinent details like the nature of the account, the drawing bodies, the dates, account numbers, etc. It is very important to include all of these. With all of that, we now close this video on exhibits of multiple kinds of business letters. While this does not cover, like I said earlier, all of the exhaustive list of letters, care has been taken to include the most commonly used and the most important ones. Hope you enjoyed the video. All the best.